Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're Monken-gate.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Georgia Show. We have a little bit of news to start the episode this evening on February 22nd. Jamon Dumas-Johnson arrested for reckless driving and racing. Did I get that correct, Jake Rowe?
Sounds like it. Sounds like based on what we've seen thus far, that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of details on it. I mean, he was arrested today. Apparently there is a briefing of some sort on UGA, on the UGA police website or a daily briefing or something they've got that says that the offense was January 10th on College Station Road. So that's kind of all we know right now. Ultimately, both misdemeanor charges, and if it was on January 10th and it was, nobody got hurt or anything like that, I think that we're looking at probably a, little nothing burger, more or less. You're basically going to have Jamon Dumas-Johnson run a lot of stadium steps and probably picking up some trash and donating some money and time and all of those things to get it all worked out. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Kind of an odd situation, though, for it to have lasted as long as it has, and interested to see kind of what's out there. We've made our requests for open records and stuff to kind of find out what's going on.
All right, DawgsHQ will keep you updated on that. We'll let you know more as we know more, but it just happened right before.
And Palmer may have more when he gets on here. He's actually writing about it right now. So when Palmer hops on here in a little bit, he may have a few more findings than we have. So
got it. All right. Well, speaking of Palmer and writing, he wrote about Todd Monken meeting with the Baltimore Ravens media for the first time earlier this week. And we got to hear from Monken and hear that he gave a lot of credit to Georgia's staff and everything that he learned from Kirby Smart. He gave a ton of credit to Kirby Smart for what he built at Georgia. And if Kirby didn't already have this established with the Dogs, it doesn't sound like Monken would have been nearly as interested to take the job a few seasons ago.
Man, he's been really forthright about that, about the opportunity to join what Georgia had going there, the established culture. I mean, even took the born on third base thing and put it on himself. How many guys do that? But yeah, Todd Monken has been very complimentary of Georgia, and I think Georgia fans obviously love him too. I mean, he has done a tremendous job. And I know I've actually gotten a few emails here like, man, I didn't know you weren't a Monken guy. I totally am. I mean, he did a fantastic job. I just do think that when you're looking at these guys and they're individuals and they're humans, they didn't push all the right buttons. And Todd Monken didn't push all the right buttons, but he pushed plenty of buttons to get Georgia where it was. And Kirby Smart deserves a lot of credit for hiring him because the whole, everybody, Mike Bobo, this is a buddy hire. Well, Kirby could have made a buddy hire a long time ago and he didn't. He hired Todd Monken. But, it just, I think, going to the NFL, it's always tough, man. It's always tough. You never can just say it's going to work. I mean, I didn't know Andy Reid was going to work from Philadelphia to Kansas City. How many guys are successful in one spot, don't quite get it done, and then never get it done? That league is an enigma, and there are very few, very, very few guys who kind of just touch things and turn them to gold in that league. And, Monken's only been a play caller in that league for one year. We don't know his quarterback situation, but I know that the Baltimore Ravens will have a few more eyeballs on them this next football season because, both of their coordinators now very much tied to the University of Georgia. Mike McDonald, double dog there, defensive coordinator, and now Todd Monken, two-time national championship coordinator and maybe probably viewed behind Irk Russell as the most beloved Georgia assistant ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think when you look at the contributions that he made on offense, he wasn't headbutting anybody and getting blood on his forehead. He might have figuratively butted heads a lot with Stetson Bennett, but it worked, and he did what he had to do. One clip that did go viral, Jake, was Todd Monken talking about Jameis Winston And this is from his Ravens press conference. I'm going to pull this up really quick and let y'all take a listen to it.
We had Mike Evans, we had Chris Godwin, we had Adam Humphries, and we had O.J. Howard, and we had Cam Brate, and we had quarterbacks that love to throw it. Sometimes to the other team, but they like to throw it. But when I was at Tampa, we had really good receivers.
Just merciless on old Jameis there. We
Not
had
just
quarterbacks
Jameis,
who like
though.
to throw it to the other team.
Dude, not just Jameis. If you look at Fitzpatrick from that one season with Monken, they kind of split that season because of injury. And Fitzy throws it to the other team every now and then too. I mean, he had him a couple of guys that enjoyed turning the ball over. That's for sure.
Yeah, so when fans got frustrated with Stetson Bennett being a little bit unpredictable, a little bit squirrely with the football, that was nothing new for Monken. He'd been there before, and Stetson really was pretty efficient other than some questionable throws and decisions he made on his own. So I'm thinking about the Peach Bowl when he had that one interception and then had that one play that I think Monken confirmed, but Kirby definitely said that Stetson wasn't even supposed to try to throw it to Ladd McConkey. So that probably gave Monken some flashbacks from some of his more loosey-goosey quarterbacks he had in the pros.
Yeah, can you imagine the number of times, Stetson probably pulled that stuff in practice, knowing, Stetson's one of those guys, he's probably smart enough in his own head to kind of be like, all right, this is practice. This is no real, there's no real repercussion for forcing this thing in there, and maybe threw some picks in practice. I bet Monken's sitting there thinking, man, this kind of stuff's gotten me fired before. This kind of stuff's gotten the staff let go. But I guess you don't have to worry about that at Georgia. Not after what they got done last year. It was probably one of the most secure spots he could have ever been. And we'll see if we'll see if he enjoys the selection of less security over less recruiting time spent.
Yeah, I mean that's really the easiest couple of dots to connect, right? Is he did hit the trail a little bit. He did go out. He did talk to guys. But what kind of impact do you think really came down to, with recruits specifically, just seeing what Monken was all about versus their relationship? Do you think that was one of those rare instances where the results on the field were able to speak so much louder than the coach recruiting just because he wasn't taking it as seriously as some of his peers, I guess, that do go out and recruit significantly way more and are more passionate about what they do?
Well, I always looked at it as Todd Monken was probably a bigger tool as a recruiter to Brian McClendon and Stacey Searles and Todd Hartley and Dell McGee. Is, they would say, hey, this is what Monken's doing for this guy. And hey, this is what Monken's offense has done for this guy, as opposed to, Monken being able to, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if you go out there and you're just like me, this is what I can do for you. That is tough. I think the big thing with Monken is, it's hitting the road and recruiting. I think just being in the room and having the credentials. And listen, he's got a great personality too. I mean, he's a funny guy. The players love him. So I have no doubt that he does relate to those guys well. But I can speak from, man, listen, I'm 39, right? And I've been in this business for 10, 11, 12 years, depending on when I got in, how you would count it. I'm to a spot now where I can't do like I used to and call kids nonstop after visit weekends and do that. I don't know. I've kind of grown out of that phase of my life, as some coaches do that. Will Muschamp doesn't, but Todd Monken does. And, especially when that's not necessarily a big part of what he got into it for. Right. So I think ultimately, that's part of it. And a big part of it is like, hey, listen, these spring and summers when they're not working in the NFL, they're maybe doing some homework on their own and doing some Zoom meetings or meeting with other staff. But I tell you what, they're not doing. They're doing camps for 12, 13, 14 and up, and in 100-degree weather and having to hang around there all day. And I remember running into Kevin Sherr at one of those things one time, and he was like, man, I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to let any of these kids see me sit down. He said, but my back hurts so bad I could go to the hospital right now. And that's just kind of the way they work with it.
Yeah, it's part of the job. Like if you worked at Best Buy in your career, you have the qualifications, and in a situation like that, you just stand up all day, be on your feet and talk to people. Whereas Todd Monken doesn't need to do that right now. He probably, if he did stay at Georgia for a few more years, he would be looking at solutions from AI and bots to send his text messages for him to recruit kids. The human touch is always present with Breaking T. The back-to-back gear is here as it always has been. I tell you all about it all the time, and it's for the people who need a new Georgia shirt or a new Georgia hoodie or mug or sweatshirt, and that is pretty much everybody listening to this show right now. There's individual shout-outs to players like Brock Bowers, Stetson Bennett, Darnell Washington, Christopher Smith, but there's a lot more national championship gear that came up the night that Georgia went back-to-back. They could probably start working on it some point in the second quarter if they had a few more designs to wrap up, because everyone knew how that one was going to go. The link to the Breaking T store is in our show description. Y'all go get you something. So this is a little bit investigative journalism here, Jake Rowe.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of reporting from our buddy Mark Weiser at the Athens Banner-Herald today that Tom Crean, of all people, helped get the ball rolling on Todd Monken leaving for the Ravens job because he has the Harbaugh family connection. Do you have any indication that Tom Crean is a Harbaugh operative?
Not as of right now, but I tell you what, man, if Tom Crean didn't leave a great taste in Georgia fans' mouth, period, he definitely has not now. And listen, this is probably this was probably going to happen with or without him. I do hope genuinely, because I'm not a Tom Crean hater. It didn't work out for him at Georgia. It's worked out in other places, and he's done some pretty cool things. Some folks think he's cheesy. I'm not judging the man. I'm just not going to do it. But I hope that they're not telling people that they got Todd Monken hired with the Baltimore Ravens.
Did Tom Crean get a cut of the salary? Like, is that part of what we're going to be looking at here?
Tom Crean's making a lot of money from Georgia right now, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I hope he's not. I mean, I hope nobody's self-important enough to really think that they got Todd Monken hired for the Ravens. Todd Monken got himself hired. But, you know, I doubt that, you know, him and his wife hanging out with Todd Monken and his wife a couple of times, you know, was the thing that tipped this in Monken's favor. But anyway, he's definitely not making any friends amongst Georgia fans that already hate his guts, probably irrationally anyway.
Yeah, that is an irrational hatred. I'm just fascinated with the concept of the Harbaughs and the Creans getting together and everyone just kind of knowing what's going on. Jim Harbaugh saying, "Hey, I don't want to meet up with that Todd Monken offense again."
Yeah, I'm looking at John's over here like working the grill, and Jim's over here throwing the football, and Tom's over here just pacing around drinking Diet Coke, you know, and it's just like, hey, what do you guys think about old Todd Monken? What do you think about him? Just, you know, out loud, you know, I don't know. It's kind of silly to think about, but I mean, what a pedigree there. I mean, I bet that is a fun cookout. I bet there's a lot of BS thrown around. You know, like I said, a lot of Diet Cokes being drunk, a lot of whole milk from Jim Harbaugh. And we know that you're not going to run into any chickens. It's a nervous bird.
Have you seen the video that Jim Harbaugh's daughter put on TikTok of him just doing chores around the house?
I haven't seen that one, but I've seen the one of them traveling and about how he he walks around at the airport and how he acts on vacation and things. And I tell you what, man, I'll say this about that. They pick at their dad, but you could tell they're a big fan of that dude too, because they've spent a lot of time with him and they know his mannerisms, and it's freaking hilarious. I think I may have seen part of what you're talking about with the chores around the house.
I'm trying to find it right now.
I've definitely seen the one of my dad, Jim Harbaugh, on vacation. It's really funny.
There's never a boring day, never a dull moment with that guy.
Yeah.
And at Stanford, like when he was at Stanford, I had no idea that he was this quirky. Like the khakis and the Sharpie thing was part of it, but I almost feel like he's just getting more interesting with age. He's just getting weirder with age. And, you know, if you've seen your parents age and get older and your grandparents, you know that the interesting traits that they have just come out more as they get older. And I've got a video right here of Harbaugh working out in a hotel hotel hallway. Let me pull this up.
Yeah, those inhibitions get lowered as they get older, and they just don't care anymore. Jim Harbaugh.
Look at this.
Lunges, baby. Planks.
Yep, just working out in the hallway.
What
yeah,
a guy.
When I look back at like the Orange Bowl, and you think about the dynamic between Kirby and Harbaugh, he's coached against some interesting guys in his career. Mike Leach, one of them. But I can't think about a more different set of dudes on the same football field than that matchup with Kirby Smart going against that team.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I feel like you can say that pretty much to anybody that Jim Harbaugh coaches on the other sideline from. There's nobody like him. Nobody
because
close.
they're relatively more normal.
Yeah,
What's
everybody's
up,
just everybody's so much closer to normal than Jim Harbaugh. I mean, and then Mike Leach, I feel like, is on the other side of normal, like on the complete other side of normal. Maybe he's even a more polar opposite than Jim Harbaugh. They're both extremely eccentric, but in different ways. I think Mike Leach hates losing. Jim Harbaugh, hates losing in a way that's probably unexplainable to Mike Leach.
Rhett Womack says Kirby's too much of a boss to work out in a hallway. He definitely is not going to be filmed working out in a hallway. I can guarantee 100%.
That. You're right there.
I want to say happy birthday to Rhett as well. He'll be 40 in 11 days. He's going to be a man then. He's going to be a man. He's 40.
Palmer, what we got? What kind of new information do you have on us for Jamon Dumas-Johnson? Anything from the police report or anything that we did not cover? You're just supposed to magically know what we covered.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We just reported on the bare facts, the info that we know. That
January 10th, is that the date that looks like?
That does appear to be the date. That's according to the UGA police jail log, or not jail log, but police log, arrest log. That the statement on there says warrants issued February 21st, 2023. So yesterday. Charges resulted from the investigation into an officer's observation of two vehicles traveling beside each other on College Station Road in a reckless manner at high speeds that fled the area upon sight of the officer. So little couple incomplete sentences there, but the log did indicate that the incident occurred on the 10th at around 8 p.m., so less than 24 hours after Georgia won the national championship over TCU.
Those boys needed some speed after that big win. College Station is not a place to do it, guys. I've been stopped there more than once, and I've never raced, but I have been stopped many times on College Station.
And further adding to it, I guess I don't know if this is something that y'all had mentioned, but he was booked at 6:35 tonight, released less than an hour later. On UJR, unsecured judicial release. Not a law school student over here, but according to Georgia code, UJR, that was a typo on my part in the story. We'll fix that. UJR means any release on a person's own recognition that does not purport a dollar amount through secured means as provided for in code section 17-6-6-4 or 17-650 or property as approved by the sheriff in the county where the offense was committed. So all that flies right over my head. Just looking into it, it says it was per standing order 22 and listed a couple of bond amounts at arrest. Those amounts totaled to $4,000. So,
gotcha. So it sounds like they knew his bond when they booked him because the warrant had already been issued. I think if we can piece that together.
And it sounds like, and I could be speaking out of context here, out of place. But it sounds like he turned himself in.
Yeah.
And So maybe his bond amount was known at the time. He showed up on the scene with that amount, was booked, and paid the amount and released. So that's my understanding of it. Very surface level. Did mock trial in high school, but that does not mean that I am a legal expert over here.
Well, we're looking for other details now. We're waiting on the arrest report and things like that. But probably that rapscallion, that AJC rapscallion Brian Gant was involved in this whole thing somehow. He probably told him that there was a warrant out for his arrest. Damn him. Got to get rid of that guy. I'm obviously.
I mean, what we do know is that Jamon is, on the field is one of the best linebackers in the country. Was a Butkus Award finalist this past season.
And we also know that if this is the extent of it, he'll be a very good linebacker in game 1 of next season.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said it, I didn't.
Y'all just keep it locked into DawgsHQ.com. I mean, these things, the turnaround on them, typically what are we looking at from a arrest like this to seeing some arrest report details and learning a little bit more?
I would assume they get us something tomorrow if they already had enough to put together a warrant and everything. I mean, this is something obviously they've been able to work on without, media jumping in and kind of reporting it first. So if they put together enough information to get a warrant, I assume that there's a responsive police report in addition to the warrant itself that's going to have probable cause on there. So I'm sure there's a lot of information out there to provide context here, and hopefully we'll get it pretty soon.
Yeah, and no sort of statement that we've received from UGA, from police, but like you said, and the police report has been requested.
Cool.
And I would assume
Palmer.
we're not the first ones to request that. Maybe the first, but not the only ones.
Right. Okay. Palmer, thanks for hopping in and updating us on that. One thing that you wrote about earlier this week was the rising sophomore receiver, Dylan Bell. And I wanted to hype that up a little bit because I don't think we talk about Dylan Bell nearly enough. But what are you uncovering about this important piece of Georgia's wide receiver core who now has to compete against a really good wide receiver recruiting class?
Yeah, I wrote a piece last night, published it today, titled "Don't Forget Dylan Bell" in the mix of Georgia receivers for 2023. I think when we're talking about that group and the names that come up in terms of the pass catching options, you've got Ladd McConkey coming back. You've got a veteran Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint. You've obviously got Brock Bowers. You've got the 2 transfers that are coming in that room. Dylan is a guy that I think a lot of people forget. And it's because he's young. It's because he played a role this year, but wasn't playing the biggest role. And I think, what I kind of urged people to do is, let's keep him in mind when we're talking about this room. An incredibly talented room. I'm not trying to take anything away from those other guys. They're incredibly deserving of the recognition and respect that they get. But Dylan Bell is certainly deserving of that too. I mean, appeared in all 15 games as a freshman, had 20 catches, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he's going to have experience under his belt that some people, even his age or older, don't necessarily have. I mean, I think if you look at that receiver room and some of the older guys in there, take a Jackson Meeks, for example, somebody that is older in age, but I would say Dylan Bell got more valuable experience when it mattered than Jackson Meeks has had in his career. Again, not a knock on Jackson Meeks, but a bumping up of Dylan Bell. I talked to him before I guess that was before the Peach Bowl. The Peach Bowl and National Championship Media Days are running together. But he talked a lot about, how excited he is for year 2.
One had Chick-fil-A sandwiches and one didn't.
Yeah, exactly. He's excited for year 2, learned a lot in year 1. I mean, I don't want to scare Georgia fans away, but him and A.D. Mitchell are really good friends, and they knew each other before their time at Georgia. And
what are you trying to say? You think Dylan Bell is a flight risk?
I mean, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I think Dylan Bell, is on his way to establishing himself in that Georgia receiver room. That's what I will say. I think he can be a valuable piece with what they are losing, Mitchell included, but also a Curious Jackson, a Dominic Blaylock. They are losing some receiver weapons. And I think Dylan Bell is somebody that has the experience, that he can contribute and start to fill a void right away.
Yeah, with Curious Jackson for sure leaving, maybe it's because they're around the same size, same kind of shiftiness. That seems like a natural role for Dylan Bell to step up into. He had 3 touchdowns last season, 20 catches, 180 yards. So that's, do the math really quick. I'm looking at a screen and cheating, but that's 9 yards per reception. So when he got the ball, he was pretty impactful. Had that touchdown in the SEC championship game. I think he did the gritty, Palmer. Is that what he did to celebrate?
That is what he did.
And we both immediately said, Kirby's going to hate that so much that a freshman is dancing in the end zone. That was the play that I remembered the most about Dylan Bell from last season. And
I don't mean to cut you off here, but you talk about Kirby's going to hate that. Kirby was a big proponent of propelling Dylan Bell forward. I mean, go back to fall camp. He didn't early enroll, so he wasn't around last spring. He told us, after we had kind of heard that Dylan Bell had a good scrimmage, he told us Dylan Bell needs to continue to get better and challenged him and wanted him to essentially was saying, hey, Georgia has had, Kirby saying this, we have had successful receivers as freshmen. It's a position that you can come in and make an impact. George Pickens did it. A.D. Mitchell did it. Dylan Bell did it. And maybe not to the extent that those other two did. But I don't think that that's an indication that he can't have the kind of impact that they had. But Kirby was aware of what Dylan Bell could do early on. I don't think we're going to hear the same kind of challenges for Dylan Bell to arrive on the scene. We might hear challenges of Kirby, Kirby issuing him challenges to continue to grow, to continue to develop, to become a leader in that room. I mean, you look at the receivers that are coming in. I mean, Jake reported it this week. There's a good chance that those guys can be contributors this year. Tyler Williams, Yazid Haynes, Anthony Evans, a fellow Longhorn State native there.
What about Dominic Lovett?
Yeah, I mean, but I was saying the three freshmen.
The freshmen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That those 3 freshmen, he's going to push them to be a leader in that room as a sophomore, as a second-year player.
Rhett Womack says he can easily see Bell with 600 yards. I think personally I would take the under just because of how much they spread the ball around, but Rhett Womack's feeling it.
Well, if he has 600 yards, I would, if you're setting that as the baseline, then I would say Bowers, Rara, and Ladd and Lovett are all going to have more. So if Dylan Bell is Georgia's 5th leading receiver at 600 yards, Georgia's going back to back to back, guys. No
or
doubt
something
about
has
it.
gone terribly wrong. That's the other way to look at it.
So 2 receivers had more than 600 yards last year.
Yeah,
Bowers and Ladd McConkey.
Ladd.
Kenny McIntosh had 504, so was still about 100 yards off, and he was 3rd place on this team. I'm with you, Wes.
McConkey.
The way that they spread the ball around, I don't see 600. I think maybe later in his career he could be capable of something like that. I don't necessarily see it next year with those 2 top receivers.
You get an injury or 2. You might be looking at the number 3 receiver grabbing close to 6
game. Let's chop some wood. Chopping Wood Wednesday, guys. I asked this on Twitter today. With all of the scuttlebutt of college football's rule changes coming down the pipe, what was the rule that needed to be changed the most And if you haven't read up on that, it's a lot of things that are going to try to save time in the game and cut down the length of these games that we watch for 3.5 and 4 hours every Saturday. I got the number one response, speaking of the Marvin Harrison Jr. play, was targeting. And I don't know how you fix that other than to fix the enforcement of what you do. And I think that was my biggest takeaway was as I think about where college football is going, things that are changing in the game, I just have to think that whether or not they look at targeting, it's here to stay. And I know that's not something that people are too thrilled about because it is such a crazy deal. But it's one thing to, protect someone's head, protect the brain cells in their skull. But when you watch these instant replays and try to enforce what's going on, the only way to adjust what we have going on is to either enforce it as an incidental targeting or I guess more of a malicious hit, like more of a NBA technical kind of foul ruling on stuff like that. So I don't know. I would love to hear what y'all think is the number one rule that college football needs to have changed, but I ultimately come away from everything we've learned this week about trying to cut down the time of the game. These rules aren't all going to be enforced. And we ultimately all know that the real reason these games are so long is because of the TV timeouts. But there's nothing you can do about that. If anything, those timeouts are just going to get longer and longer.
Yeah, I think one of the things you may could do to kind of shorten the game up is until you're in the last 10 minutes of the game, you don't stop the clock to reset for a first down. I like that in college as a way because you don't have a 2-minute warning as kind of an extra way to stop the clock late in the game or to slow the clock down, slow the game down. But that would be something I would advocate for in that vein of speeding up the game is maybe outside of the final 3 minutes of it or final 5 minutes of the game. They already do it with out of bounds, right? I believe it's outside of the last 2 minutes of each half. Going out of bounds results in a small pause and then the play resumes. I think you just keep the clock rolling on first down until the last 5 minutes of each half or the last 3 minutes of each half or whatever.
So I was going to chop wood on this anyway, but it kind of pertains to this conversation. Is I think it's got to be recruiting rules. I mean, they've got to change the calendar because it's just so taxing on these coaches. You're seeing it now with the coaches that are going pro, decided to go off to the NFL. You just cannot have these coaches recruiting or being forced to recruit nonstop. So to me, that's the biggest rule that I think needs to be changed, and I will change my chopping wood.
Yeah, I mean, when you have coaches that are doing this year round, and we talked about it before you came on, Palmer, just talking about Todd Monken going, we already kind of knew that was Monken's deal, right? Like it was going to be a struggle to hold on to Monken each and every year. But there are more and more coaches that we think and we tab as college football coaches. The NFL is going to start to get a lot more appealing if these calendars stay the same for their day-to-day, their month-to-month, and each and every year. There's just no rest for them. And someone tweeted at me the Don Draper line. That's what the money's for. But there's only so much money that you can make to replace the time you miss with your family, to running your body in the ground, to always recruiting your own players. I'm with you, man. That has to be addressed. And I don't think enough people really talk about it.
I will say this, though. I think that you have more opportunities to be valuable at college, in the college level, than you do in the pro level. Because in the pro level, you better be able to recruit, identify, develop at a super high level, get the attention of grown men, gain their respect, get them to listen to you, have solid input on the guys you want, that type of thing. You better be able to do that. And you better be able to do it at a very, very high level, or you're going to be back recruiting again because you're good at it. Some of these guys don't love recruiting, but they're good at it. They can relate, they can BS, they can sell, they can do all this stuff. And you're going to see, a back and forth there. But ultimately, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of coaches that you thought, highly paid, maybe college lifers. They're going to jump out there and take a shot at the NFL at the very least to see if they can get it done because it's a better lifestyle.
Got anything you're chopping wood about, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna chop wood on Georgia getting to go to the White House. Mark Weiser breaking all sorts of news. Mark Weiser's the man. I love him. Mark Weiser is
Good dude.
reporting that Georgia has been invited to the White House. Lord, listen, if Georgia goes to the White House, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. If your kids ever get a chance to go to the White House, it's great. I hope that Georgia fans and just sports fans in general can just take the time to understand the symbolism of it and what it has always mean. And it's always meant that you've accomplished something incredible. Georgia's done it in back-to-back seasons. I don't know why they didn't go last offseason. It looks like they're going to get a chance to go this offseason. If they do, I hope Georgia fans really celebrate it the way it deserves to be celebrated. Their favorite team visiting the nation's capital and getting to be honored in such a way that, I mean, if you look back over the history of presidents and, how many champions there are every, few years, I mean, you're talking hundreds. You're not talking thousands. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of over the course of time of champions getting to be acknowledged at the White House. And that's pretty special. So I hope everybody gets a chance to really enjoy that and they take the choice to enjoy that.
Yeah, Warren Brinson tweeted at the president this week and said it was crazy that there wasn't an invite. I never confirmed or knew whether or not that invite had or hadn't happened at that point, but I did think about it. And with Jimmy Carter and the state of health that he's in, this being the state that he was from, I thought it would be a no-brainer. And we don't talk a lot about politics, if ever, on this show. And I hope it's not just a political move if and when it happens, but it makes too much sense to not pay tribute to the state of Georgia and to honor the team that's earned it with back-to-back national championships right now. So totally right, guys.
If that becomes a media event, Jake, are you going to try to go?
I don't know. I've been to DC a couple times. I ain't lost anything in DC, bro. I got no business there. It's too crowded. Right. I'm too old.
Not one for the monuments.
No.
Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe. We'll be back on Sunday night, and we're always here on Mondays with Bark After Dark, and y'all talk to Dan Inman. Jake, you and Jake Roos did. So if you missed that on Monday, definitely invite you and encourage you to check that out. Episode 3 now up, and another one coming up on Monday. All right, y'all. Have a good week. We will catch you on Sunday night. Peace.